Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Brick Marketing Live podcast. Today is Tuesday, May 26th. We have lots of industry topics to discuss, things about SEO, AI SEO, social media marketing, content marketing, digital marketing, all things businesses need and marketers need to understand of what's happening in the marketing world. I'm Nick Stamoulis. I'd like to welcome Catherine and John to the Brick Marketing Live podcast. We're streaming live on the Brick Marketing website and also on the Brick Marketing LinkedIn company page, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. And also, this podcast will be available on all major podcast platforms later this evening. So feel free to download it. So let's dive right in. First article today is from Search Engine Journal, and the title is Google's LLMS text guidance depends on which product you ask. So I thought this was very interesting. So there's a best practice in AI SEO or generative engine optimization about creating an LLMS text file and installing it on the back end of a website, much like an XML sitemap might help, on the SEO side of things. So essentially, Google is essentially saying that it's not necessary for Google Gemini. And so I find it interesting, and it's interesting because I've actually read on LinkedIn many people kind of debating this. My personal opinion and what we advise our clients is right now, yes, Google Gemini is important. Google's saying, okay, it's not going to really matter for Google Gemini, but there's other LLMs, AI platforms out there, ChatGPT, right? Perplexity, Claude, Microsoft Copilot. So there's other players out there. So best practice, just create it. It doesn't take a long time to do. Keep it updated regularly. It's not a heavy lift item, so I don't know why it's even a thing. So, I guess Google maybe is like, you can't use an LLMS text file as a shortcut. So I don't know. Catherine, John, what do you guys think?
Well, it seems like one of those transitionary things to me that, what do we do to replace sitemap?
Right.
Or what do we do? What's the AI equivalent of the sitemap? And the answer for a long time was the LLMS. I don't
Right.
know if that means it's going to be around forever. It's around now. It's helpful for
Yeah.
the other platforms. May as well just do it.
Right. Yeah. John, what do you
Keep it
think?
updated. It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it is. It is. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and it's like Google Gemini is only one of the AI platforms, right? Who knows if ChatGPT is pulling from it? And Google also loves to say that things don't matter when they really do as well, right? So it's like
They do.
Even
They
if they're
really
saying
do.
it's not working, I would just be wary and have it.
That's
anyway.
a really good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. Oh yeah, I agree. Next article from Marketing Week. X launches tool matching brands with creators. I thought this was really cool because, it's interesting in many circles, industry folks and clients, people just don't want to use X as a social media platform to market their brands. It's really astounding to me. It's kind of like, okay, keeping politics aside, right? And whether you like or dislike Elon Musk, it's not a bad platform. And so, I thought this was great to actually find some positive news about X, where they're actually creating tools to help brands find creators. I just thought it was a really nice to see something new launch that's AI related at X. So that's what we're talking about. So, Catherine, John, what do you think?
I have some friends who are influencers who have noticed since AI came on the scene that their business has been just not as much. People haven't been sure where the influencer thing was going to be going. I think this is a positive step in the right direction because AI can help enhance an influencer's business and it doesn't have to compete with it. And this
Right.
is one data point to say, hey, this is where things are headed. Stick it out, and AI can create opportunities for you.
Yeah. John, what your thoughts?
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of a platform that I was invited to be on, where it does this essentially for like YouTube channels, where it'll use AI to, match a brand, whether it was like HelloFresh or your
Sure.
NordVPNs, like the popular ones, match them up with creators on the website that are certain sizes or have certain topics that would match them up with others. And this is it looks like it's exactly that, but for X. And it's a very good and helpful product for both brands and creators.
Yeah, yeah. My thought is, wouldn't it be nice if all the social platforms had this kind of tool available? Because I know, that's something that often many times we'll have clients that will say, "Hey, can you launch an influencer marketing program?" And, it's always a heavy lift, even using AI, even using, like you said, John, some of the other, platforms. And I'm aware of some of them, and some of them are great. But the problem is not all creators are on those platforms. In
Mhm.
fact, most aren't.
Yeah.
Most don't know what they are. And a lot of those platforms take a percent of, of revenue from you. So that oftentimes will have a reluctance to a lot of creators, influencers to actually be
Mhm.
on there. So I think it's great that the social platforms, and in this case, X is actually offering that. So it would be nice if they all
Yeah.
did, right? Like TikTok should have their own. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like TikTok is huge for for influencers, and they really
Yeah.
should.
It definitely seems like a no brainer. Even those platforms could, take a certain percentage of it, and it's basically free revenue for them.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure. Moving on, next is an article from the Brick Marketing blog, from our blog, building content clusters for AEO, answer engine optimization, or AI search. So this is an article that basically is, where we talk about the importance of creating content clusters that will help, your brand and your content's topical visibility in AI search. And I think that, remember, for those of you listening that you don't know really what the heck we're talking about, is AI search. You have, basically, AI SEO is the umbrella, which is search engine optimization essentially. Then you have generative engine optimization, which is for entities or brands and clarity of entities and brands. And then you have answer engine optimization, which essentially is content marketing, kind of, early and mid-level type sales level content where you're answering questions that's tying to your brand. What we're seeing is content clusters creating micro bursts of content so the AI platforms can actually digest the information is really helpful. Now, advice on this, and we tell our clients and we advise our clients to not choose one approach over another, right? You want to have a well-balanced content marketing strategy. Understand what your strategy is first, and then roll it out. Say, okay, here's what's going to resonate first and foremost with my audience, tie into your
Mhm.
business goals, and then start to say, okay, now is there useful content that we can create that will help us generate leads, generate any outcomes we're looking for that will also help an AI search? And that's kind of what we're alluding to in this article. So, Catherine, John, if you want to chime in on this one.
Yeah. So AI, one thing that's really important for AI is that it loves to understand how your topic and all of your offshoot topics interrelate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this helps it understand who you are and what you're about, and helps it return your brand properly in its answer engines.
Right.
So one way that you can do this and to encourage AI's understanding of who you are and what you do is to do these content clusters. It's in, like Nick said, it's one strategy of many, but that's the theory behind it.
Right.
That AI needs to understand how things relate to one another, and this is one of the strategies that we have taken on that we have found to be really helpful for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, AI is still somewhat of an algorithm, but it's like a highly contextual algorithm. So things like content clusters are very helpful because it's able to easily read what you're about or whatever your article is about, say, and sort of spit that out to whoever is asking questions on whatever
Mhm.
platform it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And just a quick reminder to everyone. So we're streaming this live on the Brick Marketing website at brickmarketing.com/live, on our LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube channels. And also, this will be made available to everyone by searching Brick Marketing Live or Brick Marketing on every major podcast platform later this evening. So, on that note, continuing on, here's a really great article from Search Engine Land that talks about Reddit. Reddit's AI search influence goes beyond training data. So essentially, this article talks about how what the difference is between AI training versus AI access versus AI citation, and talking about, and in the article, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the details, but the article, I definitely recommend that you read it on Search Engine Land. But the article essentially talks about how the LLMs, the AI platforms, really do like Reddit because of the kind of the contextual relevancy, and then, as they put it, lived experience. So, and the fact that there's disagreements on Reddit. So what that shows is if there's a topic that essentially it's getting fleshed out one way or another. So it's not like if you have a citation or, if an LLM, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, use a non-Reddit source as a citation for information, it's generally speaking, especially if it's a brand's website or company website, it's one approach or it's one way of looking at it. And I think that's what they like, is, for now anyway, that Reddit has that level of, kind of disagreement, but also settling on the consensus for, from a contextual perspective. So I think this is a great article. We love Reddit. But you also have to think, okay, are your customers going to be at Reddit too, right? If you're launching a Reddit campaign only for the intention to show up in an LLM and AI search citations, I'd say you may want to reevaluate it, right? Like, but if your audience is there, like our audience at Brick Marketing is there, so we're active at Reddit. So it makes sense. So I think that's one thing I would kind of also suggest, that when it comes to creating citations, there are many ways to create citations, both brand citations, contextual citations for that brand. But Reddit is one source. But our recommendation is generally, make sure it really ties into your audience as well before you engage in just a Reddit campaign with this one purpose. So, what do you guys think, Catherine, John? What do you think?
Yes. So AI treats your website, for example, as one source of many.
Mm-hmm.
And Reddit is the same way. It's one source of many. So
Mm-hmm.
if your audience is naturally there, and if you're already kind of on Reddit anyway, either being mentioned or because you as a brand have spent time on it, it is worth examining because it has some good content. It can offer the contrarian opinion. It
Right.
could be another data point to help AI understand how all of your topics interrelate to one another and how everything fits in your industry. And it can just give more fuel for how you're returned in the answers.
Mm-hmm.
One thing to be sure of, though, is that Reddit can be unpredictable because it's user created. So if you're
Right.
present on Reddit, this is something that should be monitored, because you don't want somebody's misinformation or somebody's maybe a disgruntled customer goes on there and complain. You don't want that to skew the answers and have it
Right.
churn out wrong information for people that are looking. But it can be a valuable tool to help people understand who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, and what you just said about the reputation management aspects of Reddit are extremely valid and extremely important. And I think a lot of brands really underestimate that one piece. Honestly, what you just said is huge. And so, and this is why, clients sometimes will say, oh, well, you guys charge a lot for your service. Well, there's a reason. Look at how many of these things we have to manage. And Reddit, reputation on Reddit, I mean, if that's relevant to your business, I mean, it's yeah, there's moderators there, but things get through. So it is important to keep your eyes on it. So, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think as of right now, Reddit's a great place to be, and it is getting cited by AI a lot.
Mhm.
But I've
Right.
been saying this a lot, that I don't think that that's going to be the case in the future, and it's
I agree.
because Reddit and Vimeo, or not Vimeo, sorry, Reddit and LinkedIn have the same exact problem, where at this point it's largely AI generated content, and now AI is iterating on itself, and that's going to become a problem with the quality of your AI responses, right? So I think in the future that it may not be as important in your AI SEO, workflow or whatever. But as of right now, it's a good place for a lot of businesses to be if it makes sense for them to be there.
Yeah. Our advice literally has been, it's our advice has evolved over the decades, over the years. But generally speaking, it's if it's a place where your audience is, where potential customers, or you need to have your brand visible, that's where you market. So and that's same thing goes with Reddit. Really does, truly. And LinkedIn for that matter, for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on, great article from the Content Marketing Institute on their website. Why your content budget keeps getting rejected and what pitch works. So it's a really fascinating article that essentially talks about the perspective of basically the C-suite. So the CEO of a company, president of a company, managing partners they're not marketers, generally speaking. They understand marketing and its function, but generally might see it as kind of like a line item in the budget. And content marketing is even deeper in that. So content marketing usually doesn't get its own separate line in most budgets. It's just bundled in the marketing, and it's digital marketing, or maybe the SEO person's doing it, or whomever, we have an in-house copywriter or whatever, and it just gets kind of lumped in. And so what I think the key points in this article that really kind of resonated with me was how marketing leaders have a very kind of short attention for content. And often, many times, they don't realize the content can be absolutely, and there's different types of content, but it can be tied to outcomes and long-term goals. And sometimes it's viewed like, oh, well, if the content isn't driving immediate visitors or immediate outcomes or immediate conversions or immediate leads right now, then it's not an effective place to invest. And I think that that's a very flawed way of thinking. And I believe that's what this article was trying to get to, was to help kind of educate C-suite a little bit more, to say, hey, don't just give up on your content. And then on the flip side, as a practitioner, someone that is responsible, maybe in-house, for trying to get approval to C-suite to say, hey, we need you to, we think this is a good recommendation. And then a manager might say, well, our sales are down. That's all they care about. Sales are down last quarter. How is this going to help us do that, right? And so I think it's a great article in the Content Marketing Institute. So I recommend everyone go and read it. But yeah, Catherine, John, what do you guys think on this one?
With marketing, you need C-suite buy-in in order for you to really get the resources that you need to get your job done. But how is that achieved? So for me, it is really understanding what outcomes the C-suite cares about for the business as a whole, and then making the case for positioning how marketing helps those happen. Now, there's a lot to unpack there because not every marketing department even does this. Some do, everybody should. So marketing and business outcome needs to be in alignment in order to get the content budget, for example, approved. For a lot of marketers, this is already well understood and it's a thing. And now all they need is to get their budget approved. And how is this achieved? Well, I have seen many, many times that marketing departments that have had an easier time getting their budget approved have played the long game with their C-suite, and even just thrown into casual conversation, almost like an elevator pitch of a statement, to help position marketing as being helpful for driving the outcomes that the C-suite cares about. So it's this whole loop, and it's this whole strategy that needs to happen. And I thought this article was great because it highlighted some of the things that we need to care about in order to get the budgets approved. And it's a good thing. But I have seen this over and over again, that it's an issue.
Yeah. Remember, people, digital marketing is at a high level, is short and long term at the same time. right? You need the short-term approach to help you achieve your outcomes and goals in the short now, but you also have to have one eye on the future. Because if you don't have one eye on the future, and this goes up way above content marketing, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have the one eye on the what's, who's calling, the playbook, right? Looking long term at the plays, then you're not going to be able to achieve your outcome in a sustained manner. And so I think, and again, that's something that we see quite a bit too. It's people are so focused on the, oh my goodness, I need to advertise. I need to get results now, that they often overlook the long-term ramifications of all these channels. Because, we've seen it over and over and over again. And it's not going to be the last time where one channel of digital marketing works great until it doesn't. So you have to continue to test, evolve, and continue to build your whole ecosystem of how you drive your business. So, John, what do you think on this one?
We'll the problem is that it's really hard to tell somebody exact numbers on how, whether it's short term or long term, how this will be good for them, right? Imagine if I came up to you and I said, I want to revamp Brick Marketing Live. We need to build a studio. We need to build a lighting rig. We need nice cameras, this, and that. We need $25,000 to do it. You're going, whoa, hold on a minute. How are we going to make $25,000 back? And it's hard to over something so long term to be able to say yes, and here's how that's going to happen.
Not from this podcast. Actually, we were joking beforehand that apparently I'm going to tell everyone, because I think it's funny.
That's fun.
That we're number 165 on the podcast charts in Sweden. I just thought it was funny in business podcasts. So anyway, there's that. I'll just leave that, and people can do whatever they want with that. Anyway, but no, you're totally right, funny. John. That's a great analogy. It really is. Yeah. It really is. Moving on. Next, a great article from Marketing Dive. Social insights fail to reach decision makers. Here's what the numbers say. So essentially, it says here, a report from Sprout Social, so that's a social media management tool, found that while 93% of industry professionals consider social media data collection to be important, just 36% use it to inform decisions outside of marketing. So I thought that was crazy, because it's kind of like, okay, especially so if you have an established company, established brand, and let's just say you've been consistent in social media for years, you have, you're visible, and you have a content marketing strategy that's robust, different types of content, you have a social media strategy that's robust, your different types of social posts, things are going great, right? Maybe the engagement isn't what you want it to be, but you're getting in front of your target audiences. So why wouldn't you use that opportunity to ask maybe product development questions, right? Maybe, perception, maybe launch a poll and do a perception type post of the brand, of what the competitive landscape looks like. Is there an industry conference that you're thinking about sponsoring or attending? Ask your audience, hey, we're thinking about becoming a part of this industry conference. Is it worth our time and budget? What do you guys think? Would you attend and come and support us? So I think this was great. And I think it's the only difference between using your data, like your social media data for an established company or established brand, is it's public. That's really literally it. If you're putting public posts and asking people for feedback. So anyway, so I thought this was great. I thought it was great, but it was very eye-opening too, that people, again, tend to think of things in silos, and none of this stuff is siloed, social media included. It's not a siloed marketing medium. It's integrated, or should be integrated, to every part of your business beyond marketing. So I thought it was a great article on Marketing Dive. So I recommend folks read it. So I'll start with you, John, first, since you're the social media guy. So what do you think on this?
Yeah. So if you are a business on social media or something like that, those people who are following you are your customers, right?
Right.
So look at what they're interacting with. That's likely to be the stuff they're the most interested in.
Right.
One of my favorite things to do is on my YouTube channel is I'll throw a poll up every once in a while, asking a question that may not be directly related to videos I'm working on or something, but can help shape the way that I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's a really easy way to get tons and tons of feedback. And, those are the people who are interested in what I'm doing, right? So it's the same thing with social media for businesses. Look at what your audience is interacting with. You can have polls on, Instagram or X or whatever. Use those features because those are great ways to talk directly to your audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really are. Truly. Catherine, what do you think?
So, what does it really mean for marketing to be in a silo? We talked about this a little bit in a couple of articles ago, but part of it is that marketing should be focused an eye on the future and on the strategy of the company,
Yep.
and while also focusing on the strategies for the present to get some more immediate results. So, what does it look like when they're in a silo? Well, marketing's just sort of, oh, that's marketing, they're doing the social media. And people around in the company just sort of think marketing is doing its own thing. So it is not a surprise to me that these insights that come from social media and from the social insights, that the rest of the business is missing out on it, because if people are
Yep.
programmed to think that marketing is in its silo, then they're not going to think that any data that comes to any of the marketing activities, social media included, they're not going to take it seriously. But they
Right.
should, because if you think about what is it really showing you, social media can give you demographics data.
Mm-hmm.
Who really is looking at your content? Is your strategy for selling your product or service, is it hitting the right people? Is what you think your target audience is that really relevant? This is all insights that you can use some social media, some of the data for, and you're missing an opportunity business wide if you're not looking at it.
Agreed. 100% correct. Next, article from Search Engine Journal. WordPress 7.0 is a winner. Here's what you need to know. So I'm not going to bore folks that don't use WordPress, might use HubSpot, which is a great platform, or other CMSs out there, depending on the business. But a lot of companies use WordPress. Like we use WordPress for our site. A lot of our clients, most of our clients actually use WordPress and have for years. So it's a great CMS. But I guess the reason why I included it in this, on our podcast, is to remind people, hey, right, you need to upgrade and maintain your content management system, right? Especially an open source content management system like WordPress. We have a client that recently, we were rebuilding their site and was extremely old version, and the client was asking, well, why do I need to upgrade it? Well, the reason is things break, right? You're opening up your website, it will become susceptible to getting hacked, to getting malware. And so our best practice, what we do for our clients, is version of WordPress always should be at the latest version. And then typically all the WordPress plugins need to be updated as soon as a new version or patch upgrade becomes available. So, you want to do things the right way. Just don't click update on the back end unless you're really sure, right? Have a web developer, a professional. That's what we do. We have our web developer on our team. Literally, he does a full backup of the website before we update. Then we upgrade the version of WordPress, evaluate the site to see if things are broken. If things break, which they do sometimes, he fixes them. Then he rolls out any plugins that need to be updated. And, we recommend you do this on a monthly basis. A quarterly basis at the bare minimum. Monthly is better. So, again, the reason why I want to mention this, there is a new version of WordPress, so you should be aware if you're using WordPress for your website, then, the version 7.0 is out there. But if you don't have a technical contingency plan, then we really recommend that you get one and have this scheduled in. So that's the reason why I included this as a reminder to everyone that it's important to state the latest version of WordPress. So I know, Catherine, you and I have seen countless issues over the years of sites literally imploding, navigation's not working, forms not working, e-commerce sites not working, not processing credit cards properly, hacked websites,
Yes.
malware on sites, spammy redirects, all sorts of stuff we've seen over the years. And so, yeah, I mean, anyway, enough said there. Do the update.
Do the
That's it.
update. Even if it's painful. I remember when WordPress released something, they introduced the block editor, and I
Oh yeah,
hated it. Do the
right.
update, suck it up. I can't say that strong
It's
enough. I
yeah. Do not.
had to
Yeah.
just do it.
Yep. I mean, there's nothing else we can really say here. So
Yeah.
anyway, moving on. A great article um, from Marketing Tech. LinkedIn plans paid for events to court the creator economy. So I thought this was really fascinating because basically LinkedIn is planning to create gated events on their website the second half of 2026 with up to 50 creators, with paid events following that later this year and into next year. So I thought this was interesting. To me, it also seemed like, you know, we get asked to, and we've managed LinkedIn ad campaigns before. We do a lot of management of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn company pages, LinkedIn groups, newsletters, events on LinkedIn, C-suite, sales teams, marketing teams, in addition to the company pages, looking at, the upgraded accounts, all this different stuff. We've managed ad campaigns many, many times. This to me seems like a play to generate revenue. Unfortunately, nothing more. I love LinkedIn. I truly do. But it's unfortunately becoming a cesspool. Unfortunately. Like a lot of the other social platforms are out there, is, you see just, like, a lot of do-it-yourself hack type posts. Then you see the, oh, let me pat myself on the back type posts, and then you see the complaining posts. Been unemployed for X period of time, which is terrible. But still, like, it's not a genuinely fun place. I don't think like it used to be. And this is coming from someone who uses LinkedIn every day. I do love using LinkedIn, but I think that these plans to create paid for events to have creators. I mean, they're just stick to free events, right? Keep social media free. Have businesses have all the upgrades and advertising, but there's you don't need to create another channel. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Another channel of revenue. So interesting to see if this actually has staying power and sticks beyond this year, or if they're just testing it. But I thought it was interesting to see this. So
There's
what do you
something
guys think?
interesting here that I picked up on. It is the use of the Chanel brand in this. In reading the article, there's no clue that they're going to be targeting luxury brands. But seeing this image makes me wonder if that's their play. Like if they're
Maybe.
going to try to create a more like luxury experience rather than it being the Instagram businesses that launch and it's like a ponytail hair extension thing. Or if,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like LinkedIn is perhaps going to make a push for the creator economy, but the creator economy that does luxury brands, because Chanel, that's a considerable luxury brand
Yes.
that it would be interesting to see how it plays out. There's no evidence that they're actually specifically going to target luxury brands in the content body of this article,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yep.
I'm just wondering with the use of the Chanel image if that's kind of where their head is at, where they're going with it.
Interesting. John, what do you think on this?
Yeah, I do wonder what like brands will really end up being involved in something like this, because LinkedIn is in like it's an interesting platform in that it's very much a type of person who's on LinkedIn and you know and
Mm.
posting on it frequently. And I don't know what type of like luxury brands, like you said, Catherine, would really be interested in doing anything with those types of people, because
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with business, because LinkedIn is very business. So yeah, I'm just
Hmm.
curious to see what this will end up being like.
Yeah. Who knows? This could be one of those stories that come out and then just gets buried and we never hear anything from again, quite
Yeah.
And they
frankly.
never did anything with it. They never did it.
Yeah,
You never
maybe.
know.
Never knows, right? Next, really great article from Search Engine Land. Why AI adoption may look bigger than it really is. So this article is fascinating. So we often utilize the data provider Spark Toro, who's quoted in it. Basically, it's a great source of industry kind of adoption for search and for and for just web trends at a higher level and AI trends as well. So the article essentially says, and the data says, at its peak, about 37% of US desktop users visited OpenAI or ChatGPT in September 2025, according to the data Rand Fishkin cited, who's with SparkToro. That figure fell to 34% by March. Fishkin said the same general pattern appeared in the EU and UK, though desktop usage was roughly 10% higher than in the US. Claude gained with professionals, so that was another insight. Um, and so, and there's a theory that AI usage is huge with businesses and not with consumers. So I think this is really interesting. And for someone myself that, and many of you listening have, I witnessed literally the rise of the internet. I've started my career in 1998. So the internet was new. E-commerce wasn't really a thing, right? There was no social media. Bandwidth speeds were slow. There was no videos online. There was nothing like that. And so, the adoption, usually what happens is it goes from like the novelty. When something launches, it goes from novelty. Then it goes to mass adoption, but it has to evolve. Like, right. So if we think about it at a higher level, kind of historically, how the web has really progressed of going from e-commerce to then being a place of social media, and then video, right? And then apps, when smartphones, right? Apps was the big craze. Every brand needed an app, all that stuff, right? And then so now you're at a point where AI is in a very similar pattern where it's out of beta, it's being utilized, people are recognizing some of its uses, but also I think that the media is not helping things, quite frankly, by pounding in everyone's brain. I heard recently too that you have half of everyone that's scared that, hey, AI is going to have a Terminator situation and AI is going to literally take over the world and erase humans, right? And then you have the other half of people that embrace it and love it. We're in that camp. We embrace it and love it because we see its endless capabilities to help scale from a business perspective and personal too, by the way. So I just think it's interesting. I think this just could be the natural progression of where things are at. Personally, I think it's moving out of its novelty phase right now. I think it's already moved out, but it's out of the novelty phase and more entrenched in, okay, there are different platforms for different purposes, right? Like the article alludes to what it actually says about Claude, right? Even for our own company, we use every platform, but we use it for certain things. We don't use one platform for everything because we've learned that, as marketers, some of these platforms have better functionality and uses than others. And so I just thought this was interesting. This is kind of one of those articles where it's like, okay, I think it could be right. The AI adoption may actually look bigger than it actually is, right? Another little nugget, and I know I mentioned this to the team earlier today, that we were actively testing at Brick Marketing ChatGPT's ads. So I'm seeing search data. And, there's not much data really, but I'm seeing impression level data and comparing that to traditional search for the audience. So that gives kind of another picture of like, okay, what's it doing? Right. So anyway, this is a very loaded and interesting article. So Catherine, John, what do you guys think on this?
The thing about a term like adoption is that when it comes to AI, which is so versatile, we have to define what that means.
Right.
Is it somebody using it to help write an email? Is it somebody using it to help make a purchasing decision? So usage is so varied that it makes it somewhat tricky for even like a brand to discover how to utilize this and to how to get their brand in the conversation when people are adopting it. So it might look bigger because of the headlines, right? The
Right.
adoption
Right.
might look
Yep.
bigger because of the headlines. Oh, the AI, and it might take away jobs. Now that type of conversation is dying down because AI is just a machine and you need a human to
Right.
police what it's saying and doing. But at the same time, there is adoption happening that is affecting the sales cycle for companies. So,
Yeah, but you know
you
what,
know what I'm
Catherine,
saying?
I do, and I think you're right on many levels, but especially on on the consumer side of things. Thinking back to the early days of the web, that literally followed this very similar progression, where the
Mm,
web was used for research, like the
mm,
businesses, like data decisions were done. For the early days of search, early days of the web, e-commerce really wasn't prevalent yet. People weren't comfortable with buying, right? There was no Apple Pay. There was no easy checkout. There was no, right? But I think that personally, I think that in the coming years, sooner than we think, when agents are purchasing and the agentic web that everyone talks about is fully flushed out and consumers are actually comfortable letting Amazon's AI tool purchase for them, letting Google Gemini purchase for them, letting
mm.
ChatGPT actually make purchases for them on their behalf, then the B2C, the consumer based adoption will skyrocket, I think.
Yes.
So I don't know, John, what are your thoughts on this? And we'll move on.
Yeah, I think the reason that you see lower percentages of people using AI is because, like you said, a lot of the novelty has worn off. And a
Yep.
lot of people are sort of sick of AI being pushed into their faces, right? It's not like
Yep.
the internet kept its, it wasn't highly monetized when it first started. So people were interested and they were interested in
Right.
using it because it was something of their own. They chose to do so.
Right.
But AI is being pushed into, regular people's lives so frequently that I think a lot of people are they're kind of over it, right? They're being forced to use AI
Mm.
in some places and they're seeing how, well, it's not really 100% ready for a lot of the use cases that it's being forced into. So a lot of people's perception of AI is getting worse and worse and worse over time. I use
Yep.
AI, I see a lot of ways that it's very helpful, especially with work. And there are some things that I use it for in my personal life, but I'm not going to it constantly in my personal life to, you know, replace, the way I search online and things like that, because it's very helpful, but it's just not fully ready for some of those tasks yet.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Right.
Well said. Well said. Moving on. Next article, why better data interpretation improves digital marketing. So this is an article that we wrote on the Brick Marketing Company blog. And so essentially what we're saying here is, prioritizing the right data metrics creates long-term better overall digital strategies. And this is something that we see, and we have not just now, but this is just traditionally, we've seen teams, whether they're, smaller business or a larger business that has an in-house marketing team, that sometimes they get bogged down with certain types of data that just really aren't really what they should be looking at, right? Or like little nuggets of information that they perceive as important, but aren't actually important for making intelligent decisions that will help guide the overall strategic directions of a digital marketing strategy. So that's what we were trying to get to here. It's a really nice read. I recommend people check it out in the Brick Marketing blog on our website. But yeah, Catherine, John, what do you guys think on this?
When we're online, we generate data.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do with that data is up to us, right? Most of the time, a lot of the times, most of the data that we have just kind of sits around and we don't look at it. Part of it is because we don't know the right metrics to collect. So we're like, okay, that's information. Okay. And you just kind of look at it and say, oh, well, who cares type
Right.
of thing.
Right.
But if your data collection is intentional,
Mm-hmm.
meaning it aligns with your business outcomes, it aligns with what you're trying to actually do with your marketing, then you should be using it to your advantage. But everything has to be aligned. Otherwise, you're just collecting numbers and the numbers can look like junk. So prioritize the right metrics, look at them, actually look at them, and create your strategies around what you're seeing. Because here's the thing, we can have a gut instinct for something. Oh, I feel this in my gut. But how many times has that actually worked out? Oh, I think such and such is going to be popular. I think this is going to be great. And it's not great. You just made a business decision based on your intuition without looking at any numbers
Yeah.
whatsoever. And
So
you're
yeah,
wasting your money.
totally. The moral of the story is use the data and then use your instinct and experience based on that data to make the
Right. Or
decision.
vice
Yeah.
versa. Or
Right.
vice versa,
Right.
even. I have a gut instinct. Does the data support my instinct?
Right. Right. Yep. Yep.
Either way, you do need both. You shouldn't ignore your gut, and you shouldn't ignore your data.
Agreed. John, your thoughts?
A big problem is that there's just so much data, right? So a lot of people
Mm.
don't know what to look at. I think
Right.
once you narrow that down, you should keep track of what you find is important for your business and keep a spreadsheet, maybe month to month
Yep.
data, maybe even weekly, and see how, like, if there are any trends, any changes, and really hone in on those things to, interpret your data better, because in the end your digital marketing will be better because you'll have real insights.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Next article is another great one from the Content Marketing Institute. Your best content campaign got the axe. How to save the work that matters. So I thought this was fascinating because essentially what it's trying to do here is give actionable advice for in-house teams or agency teams or whomever that essentially creates content, maybe longer form content that took a lot of effort and work. So a scenario is you create a white paper, and the white paper is a nice shiny new object of research and data. You spend a lot of resources, developing it, developing the graphics, laying it out, having it look great, determining if it's going to be gated or ungated, look at what KPIs you need, all of this stuff, right? And then all of a sudden it's working gangbusters, accomplishing your goals, doing well, and then it doesn't. And it gets outdated, right? And then it just gets kind of thrown on the shelf somewhere. And then you move on to the next shiny new object. So this article is essentially trying to give actionable advice, which I thought was great, about how to protect your assets, your content assets, and how to use them in the future, and then communicate that to management, this the C-suite, to say, hey, we invested this amount of time. Maybe let's not shelve it completely. Maybe let's reuse parts of it elsewhere here or another place here. So I thought this was great. We often help our clients with content recycling and reusing older content. Rewrite it, change the title, change URL structure, add some micro content to it, swap out the photo if the photo looks dated, right? Like there's things you can do to revitalize a piece of content that maybe is stale and ineffective, especially if you've invested so much in your content over the years, and a lot of companies do. It doesn't make sense to just throw it away and discard it. So I thought this was a great piece at the Content Marketing Institute. Really recommend folks checking it out. So, Catherine, John, what do you think on that?
In a way, this article to me also validates why it is important to have transparency with your leadership.
Yep.
About what is going on with your content and stuff. Because when they're making budgeting decisions, trying to decide what to axe and what not to axe, if marketing had been in a silo and they don't know what's going on, they're going to just be like, oh yeah, we don't need the blog, and they're just going
Right.
to not budget for it anymore out of the blue. But if they are kept in the loop about what marketing does and why it's important, then your content is not going to get the axe because they're going to understand why it's needed. So uh, when you're putting together a campaign for content or for anything else in digital marketing, keeping people in the loop about why it's important will prevent your budget from getting canceled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. John, what do you think?
Yeah, one of I really agree with sort of recycling content in different ways, because you've spent the time like maybe Catherine said, to write a ton of blogs, and now that's getting axed. Maybe that won't be accessible to people anymore. Well, as long as you still have it, you can use those blogs to maybe make social media posts. Maybe you can make videos, explainers, stuff like that. That might be that shiny, new object to whoever is, making those decisions in the end. So yeah, keeping that whatever content you're making, and then finding ways to sort of recycle them a whole bunch is such a good way to make sure that all of that work doesn't go to waste.
Absolutely. Moving on, great article from Digiday. Trust becomes the product. Marketers grapple with Google's new suite of AI-powered ad agents. So essentially, this is a great article. Essentially talking about performance max, deja vu, basically. Essentially, Google's new for Google AdWords, for Google Ads, their new AI type program that creates a full campaign using AI. And so we've tested it. And we've tested a lot of the Performance Max was, in the past. And I'll tell you, for certain types of campaigns, it works great. And honestly, I think Google wants, we all have to understand, it says this article talks about that trust becomes the product. It's true. Google Ads wants brands and companies to trust that their AI-powered agents, are going to launch Google ad campaigns that will actually achieve results. And we've tested it, and some of it works great, but some of it doesn't. And I think it really depends on the type of business, the type of audiences, and what type of budget you're working with, quite frankly. I mean, I don't like throwing the budget in there, but it's true. I mean, if you have, a larger ad budget, and then sure, maybe you say, okay, let's take 5% or 10% of our overall budget and experiment with this. Have our rest of our 90% of our budget segmented out, and we know that it's tight and it's going to drive the outcomes that we're looking for and the goals and results we need. So I just thought this was interesting, but I would caution small businesses. Right? There's no real shortcuts to doing this. We've worked with with businesses that come to us to manage their PPC and the Google ad campaigns, and they're on autopilot, and they're literally using these AI Performance Max type campaigns, and the results are atrocious. Conversion rates are low. It's just spammy traffic. Remember, and they say, oh, look how many eyeballs I'm getting. It's not about how many eyeballs you're getting. It's what type of results you're getting from your advertising and what type of return on that ad result that you're really seeing for your business. So yeah, Catherine, John, what do you guys think on this one really quick?
I think grain of salt, right? Like you
Yep.
mentioned, a campaign is only as good as how it's composed. And if your ultimate goal is for high intent um, traffic, you don't know, honestly, you don't know if the Performance Max or any of the AI driven stuff
Mm-hmm.
is going to deliver that. It's going to deliver what it thinks it knows you want right now.
Yep.
I feel like we have a ways to go until these AI driven tools are sophisticated enough to help businesses get the outcomes they really want from the campaigns.
Yep. Agreed. All right, let's move on. A few more here for today. Next is an article from Smart Brief, which essentially is quoting an article, report on Future B2B's special report. Name of the article is How B2B Marketers Can Succeed in the Age of AEO, Answer Engine Optimization. And so the takeaway that I looked at, and I actually looked at the report and went through it a little bit, I thought it was great. It says here that they dive into AEO, or Answer Engine Optimization, is nothing more than an evolution of SEO. The same SEO principles plus some key changes can position you for success, the article says. It said Future B2B provides details on foundational AEO best practices, how to structure your content, importance of authoritative content, how to build your brand authority, ways to keep content fresh, and AEO, or Answer Engine Optimization metrics to add to your SEO dashboard. I think this is great.
Mhm.
And this actually ties directly into Google recently changing the, I guess, the philosophy that AI SEO or AI search also known as generative engine optimization is one part of it, and answer engine optimization is the other part of it, is nothing more than SEO. And so we've been saying that for years since AI is launched and AI was in play. We've been saying it, and now we're just seeing it. Google made the official statement recently, and we're starting to see other marketers chime in on this. And so it really is. I mean, and so the reality is, if you're a brand owner and you don't have this in-house capability, find a partner to help you with this. Find someone that has this experience to do it, because it's just a quote unquote SEO, but it's a lot more complex than people think, because you have to balance traditional search with generative engine optimization, with answer engine optimization, a content marketing strategy, citation building strategy, everything technical that's involved with all of it. So, not brain surgery, but also not that easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, Catherine, John, really quick, do you want to just chime in really quick here? I have a few more and then we'll call
Yeah.
it for today.
So I would widen that actually. Yeah, the best practices for AI are basically SEO strategies tweaked, but some of the things like, oh, build your brand authority, that is a marketing principle, period.
Right.
And if you feel like you're playing catch up right now with the AI era, it probably means that you have kind of ignored your marketing for a while. It's just
Yep.
something to think about.
Yep. Agreed. All right. A few more. So this next one is from Search Engine Land, called the Search Everywhere Optimization Pyramid: How to Build Visibility Before Search. I thought this was brilliant. And we're actually going to be creating some really nice reference materials in the future about searching everywhere. And really, what this article tends to say is people think of SEO as search engine optimization, but it's really you're searching everywhere. That means you're searching on YouTube. And YouTube, by the way, folks, is one of the top search engines by itself, right? So like if take Google out of the mix, take Bing out of the mix, it's probably number 2 search engine right next to Google, YouTube, right? So people search on YouTube, people search on Amazon, people think about it, right? People search on Reddit, they're searching in social media, right? So when we address optimization for our clients and building a brand, we look at that content and how that fits into every channel and where your audiences are and how are they searching. How are they, what branded and non-branded ways they're searching for your products or services. So I thought this was a great piece from Search Engine Land. I recommend everyone check it out. But John, let me start with you on this one, because you and I were actually talking about this earlier. But I think Catherine will get your thoughts on it. But yeah, tell me really quick.
Yeah, the search everywhere way of putting it is such a good way for people to understand it better, because AEO, AI SEO, it really does make it sound like it is just search engine stuff. But in
Right.
reality, we talk about it all the time. We talk about
Yep.
Reddit, we talk about your own websites, we talk about social media and how it all plays a huge role in the way that your business comes up in AI. So I think it's a really clear way for people who might not fully understand it yet to understand it better.
Yes, absolutely. Catherine, your thoughts?
This is aligned with what I've been saying, what we've all been saying, that you have to be
Yep.
visible on the public internet in order to
Right.
have your brand found in AI. And this is aligned with that. You can't think of search as its own thing. You have to think of search as an entity that includes all of your marketing. And
Yep.
this article has a really nice way of explaining the concept.
Absolutely does.
Yeah.
So last for today, an article from the Brick Marketing blog. Digital marketing works best when strategy comes first. And I know the title seems like, oh, duh, kind of basic, but it's true. You know how many
You'd be
times we've
surprised.
seen, here's the thing. Digital marketing, and that means any channel of marketing. So SEO, AI SEO, content marketing, social media, paid advertising. It doesn't matter the channel of digital marketing or offline marketing for that matter. If you're just shooting in the dark, what you're doing is you're doing tactics, right? Digital marketing they're not tactics. They're strategies that should be working in a coordinated, organized fashion together. And that's an area that we see so many clients over the years in recent, where they come and say, oh, they put their whole, effort on one quote unquote tactic, or, oh, a buddy of mine told me that I should do X, or I saw this podcast and I want to do Y. What do you think? Well, my thought is, well, why don't we look at the now? We had a client that we're managing and the results are great for this client comes to mind. And the client is like looking for that next shiny new object. And they always do. What else can I be doing? And instead of doing the shiny new art object and being a tactic approach, make it strategic. So that's what we're trying to convey here in this article, is it works best when strategy comes first. So, Catherine, John, anything to add quick on this?
It's our core philosophy, really. And we're
Really
trying
is.
to save our clients from themselves, to be honest, because a lot of the times when somebody introduces a shiny new object, it's expensive and won't bring in the high intent traffic that
No.
makes the phone ring. And we know the difference.
Right.
So create a great strategy that aligns with your outcomes, and that's what you should be focusing on. I don't care if somebody said that this podcast is a cool idea. Cool does not necessarily mean you're going to get the phone to ring and get the business you
Right.
need.
So true. We're going in our 22nd year in business, right? We've been in business for 21, going on to 22, and we launched a podcast this year. This podcast you're listening to, right? Right. So we could have done it 10 years ago, but we didn't, right? So there's reasons for it.
Right. We had
Right.
other stuff that we were
We had
focusing on.
other priorities.
Yeah.
Correct. So John, really quick on this, and then we'll call it for today.
I don't have too much to add. It's just that every decision you make needs to have some strategy behind it, because you can make tons and tons of decisions that don't really make sense, and you might end up spending money in places that it just becomes a waste. So, like we were talking about earlier, use your data, right?
Yep.
Find what works and do it, iterate on it, and that's all you need to do.
Exactly. Well said. All right, so that will conclude today's podcast. Our next Brick Marketing Live event will be next Tuesday, June 2nd at 4:30 Eastern. And remember, you can stream this podcast live on the Brick Marketing website, brickmarketing.com/live, on the official Brick Marketing Company LinkedIn page, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. And also this will be added on every podcast platform, every major place where you can listen to a podcast. Search for Brick Marketing or Brick Marketing Live.